You can't be afraid. The biggest thing that John Rose, who's the CTO of Dell, it's always about experimentation. Mm-hmm. How do you move fast? And in fact, probably not the acronym you think. Everybody goes SOL. It's the speed of light.
Hey guys, I'm Tonya Turrell, and today's episode is such a special one. This is our first ever episode of Between Fires and Futures, and I couldn't be more excited to launch this conversation with a true leader in the AI space. Alan Clingerman is the Chief Technology Strategist at Dell Technologies, where he's shaping the future of data-centric infrastructure and AI adoption. Alan doesn't just talk about AI, he's in the trenches helping companies actually make it work. From mainframes at IBM to engineered systems at Oracle to his leadership today at Dell, he's been solving hard problems in enterprise tech for over 30 years. And today he's here to help us unpack what's really happening with AI in the field and what tech leaders need to understand if they want to lead through this next wave of change. Alan, welcome to Between Fires and Futures. I couldn't imagine a better guest to launch this series with us, so thank you for being here.
No, I'm honored and super excited to be here with you and all the listeners. I think this is a great topic, and it's something that comes top of mind every time, no matter the size of the organization I'm talking to, is like, where are they at with AI in their journey and how did they get started? And everybody's at a different phase, but there shouldn't be anybody that's afraid of any question at this point because everybody's just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a ton of questions that have come in from our IT community as well. So I've really been looking forward to this because these incredible questions that came in, they're straight from IT leaders in our community who are navigating these challenges in real time. And I know you're right there in the field having these same conversations with customers every day. So I just can't think of a better person to help us unpack them. So let's get to the first question. So you spend a lot of time in the field with tech teams. What kinds of fires are they putting out right now when it comes to AI? Like, where's the tension showing up the most?
And I love that. It fits right in with the theme of your program, right?
Yeah.
I think about this in the context of really three things. The fires that I continue to see that are coming out. Number one, there's an interesting dynamic that's happening between IT and the line of business because AI has to be the biggest team sport that there ever was in an organization in order to be successful. Because the IT organization might own the technical underpinnings to deliver outcomes, but yet the business problems are actually held by the line of business and all the primary stakeholders there across, horizontally across the company. So I see fires like IT teams getting forced into positions where they're trying to go solve a problem that they don't even know. Right? They don't know what the business problems are. They know the technical problems that underlie them, and they're trying to fit like older taxonomies or architectures like virtualization into AI. It's completely different. This is more like high performance compute than it is traditional virtualization. The second one I would call is data management is extremely important here, right? And by the way, you mentioned it, my time at Oracle, especially as I was out helping bring Exadata and Exalytics to market to help customers build data products and get those out to market to help their business, right, continue to grow, no matter what they're trying to do or reduce operational expense. Many of the things we try to do with AI today had underpinnings in high performance data analytics, but I can't get those outcomes if I don't have my data house in order. The third one is, hey, maybe I've tackled those first couple problems, but now I'm trying to move some proof of concept that I might have built in the public cloud, or maybe I built it on-prem. It really doesn't matter where I built it. And I'm trying to bring it to inference at scale to my internal constituents or to my customers. Those are the three big ones that I see that are fires that I'm putting out, to your point, every day, no matter the size of the org.
How are the most successful teams handling this? Like what's going really well in the field that you're seeing?
I would say there's a couple things going really well. Number one, and it tends to be no surprise, the largest of those organizations in specific verticals where they have a really well-defined business problem, and then they apply a use case, right, as we call them in AI, because I get those questions all the time. What are the use cases? Well, the use cases have to tie back to your business problem, or they're not going to provide you any outcome.
Right.
I got to have a good tangible outcome. So the ones that have identified the business problems that have the highest business impact with a quick time to value and a high ROI are the people that are really driving this forward. And they're coupled, ideally with a set of IT architects that can help build these high performance architectures to make it real for the organization.
Right. So where would you say that organizations should start?
So there's a lot of use cases, and I know you might even have some questions later related to this, but I'll kind of call out there's 6 horizontal use cases that we've identified across every organization, no matter their size, that could get some value out of AI. The first one that we think about, and I'm going to say first and second because I kind of group them together, is document automation and content creation. So content creation, like even call this one out, like pretty amazing to see what's happening in media and entertainment, or what's going to turn the whole film industry upside down. Sony Pictures is pursuing this, and they understand some things that they're doing in artificial intelligence. What if they could produce 10 times as many films per year as they do today? What does that do to their potential revenues? Oh, and I can do it faster and cheaper than I ever could.
Right.
So it's about bigger, better, faster, cheaper. If I can't define something in a business problem to solve one of those outcomes, why am I pursuing it? The other one that I would call out that fits right in there is, hey, once you've done some of that and you brought those to real, like you bring your documents all in one place, I'll call this one out because it's the easiest one for everybody to get started on. What do we see even in our daily life? Data lives everywhere today, right? In the public cloud, on your devices. How do I bring that all in one place and be able to ask for both questions? We can never have good enough search. I think everybody, I would hope at this point, has used some type of generative AI. If not, please go to ChatGPT or Copilot or something and get some experience there of what prompt engineering can do. But ask it a question, and it provides it back based on learned knowledge. Well, now I'm providing your business data against that. How much impact could that bring to the organization?
Yeah, huge.
And then I could do it in a couple of different taxonomies. We call it a digital human. So I could interact in text and certainly in speech, by the way, in the language that's most preferred by the user, but also in digital humans. So imagine now being able to interact with a digital human, right? That acts, speaks your regionality, your language of choice, your speed and inflection. There's some voice response units out there, not even without even the digital human, that I would tell you 95% of the population wouldn't even be able to detect or AI. They're getting that good, that fast. Those are 3 of those primary 6 that I think are easy ones to kind of get started with for every company.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I have a question from our community. Hunter Patterson, the director of IT at Repicorp, asks, what are the most practical ways AI can help a mid-sized business grow in today's environment, and how can it become a real competitive advantage without a huge upfront investment?
I'm actually going to call a couple of things that I just kind of referred to, right? That document automation, because I think it's the easiest place for every company to get started. And I'll even call it out because this is what we're doing at Dell Technologies. We just rolled out to all of our sellers, and obviously that includes all of our pre-sales technical teams too, a tool called Sales Chat. And it was just that of think about every document repository we have across our company. Now, we're a global 50, so it's a pretty big one. I mean, we have zettabytes of storage. Most people don't have that. But still, you start thinking of your data landscape, no matter where it lives, how large it is. The average company is growing by about tenfold every year of how much data they hold. So it's how do I extract value out of the data? The large language model and generative AI can make that real. Just being able to put that all in one place and give you verbose speech or text to actually ask it a question and it responds back to you. I can tell you, since we rolled it 6 weeks ago, even as the field CTO, I used to be meticulous at keeping all my documentation and engineering diagrams and source books. So if somebody came with a very technical piece and I didn't know it off the top of my head, I could just go dig it out of the documentation. I don't have to do that anymore. This is easily giving me back 25% of my day every day because I can just go in and ask it a question. Hey, can you give me the PCI layout of the R760? Boom. Now I have a visual sitting right there on the screen and I didn't have to do a thing.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, we're doing the same thing internally at Technology Match, and we're doing it for each one of our clients too, so that we've got knowledge bases around each client, and it's saved us already a ton of time.
And I'll call out, because I think it's tangentially tied to that, is when you start thinking about bringing AI to your organization, right? Everybody has different roles. And obviously it can depend on the size of your org, but you start thinking about HR, legal, sales, marketing. There's It, like I just said, sales chat. Imagine this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our marketing team has one called Jasper. They have their own version of it because it's fine-tuned to get the outcome we want, which is what? To train it on Dell technologies and be able to provide more marketing-based assets to that team. So it's not just a chat GPT, right? That's one experience trained on base knowledge. This is actually trained on your company, right?
Yeah.
And your company's data and the guidelines, or what we call guardrails, of how do we control that, right? What type of response is it going to give? How do we, like in our marketing taxonomy, what do we want to say about the Dell AI factory?
Right. I mean, it really is limitless when we look at, I really struggle to imagine the world even a year from now when you think about how fast it's moving.
Yeah, no, immense. Because even it was a model discussion many times, early on. If I go 18 months ago, everybody's coming up with different models. There are always going to be models. Models really don't mean much without the company data. If I'm going to achieve a business outcome, it's about the right model, right? And by the way, I want to pick the smallest, most efficient model I can because it requires less infrastructure run on, whether you run in the public cloud or on-prem. I got to make it run cost effectively because, again, this is high performance architecture. This isn't that little cute VM that you ran your one business application on and threw in the public cloud and, run it for $20 a month. That's not this. It's completely different.
Yeah. So when companies move from pilot to production, where do you see them getting stuck the most beyond the cases that we talked about? Like, what's the biggest unspoken risk in the transition?
Yeah, I called it out at the beginning, and I want to double click on it because it is probably one of the biggest challenges I still see everybody struggling with is back to my data, right? I need to bring it into one place. I need to cleanse and prep that information in order to ingest it and put it into an LLM to achieve the outcomes I just described. The big problem is almost everybody's, what I would say, the biggest technical debt in every organization, regardless of their size, is that data architecture.
Yeah.
So
I know we're in
how
the
do you
throes
bring
of it
everything
right now, so I'm so familiar with it.
And by the way, there's lots of different approaches, right, to achieve this. Some, if you're a small business and you got 20, 50 employees, there's actually really cool off-the-shelf tools that I can purchase that just have connectors to those data sources that I can add against a large language model, right? And put into production quickly in minutes. I think that's the other thing. Everybody thinks this stuff is so difficult. At the end of the day, once you start using the technology and understand what it can do, I can bring exactly the outcomes we're talking about here, documentation to a model, and show and demonstrate internally to a constituent, right, to a leader of the outcome they're trying to see here across any one of those business units in minutes.
Yeah.
I think everybody thinks this is going to take them days or hours or years. No, I mean, it might long term to capture all the data if you're us, right? Yeah. And you got a zettabyte of data. But if you're not that, you can get started today.
Yeah. I would say 2 years ago, whenever I asked my CTO how long a scope of project would take, it would take weeks or months. And now it's days, minutes, a week tops, which is mind-blowing to me that we've shrunk the time to value so dramatically. So aside from the data, are there any other common threads in leadership decisions that either accelerate or stall this transition?
I will say that data is number one. I'd say the second one is skills, because we're again back to IT teams have many at this point, right? A couple decades of experience in building, virtualization pods and be able to take mission critical applications and bring them to their business and provide a good SLA and data protection and, high availability, all the things we expect from IT running at 7x24, right? Nobody accepts downtime anymore. And they do a great job at that. But this is, as we already described, this is high performance architecture.
Right.
It's not that at all. It's like we step back 30 years and now we're having to say, hey, I'm going to run on bare metal assets, which is where we started in x86 again. Oh, and by the way, all the things, technologies that they're used to, like VTD and the server, which allows virtualization to happen, they don't exist in a GPU. Oh, and by the way, these are heavy applications. That's why it takes a lot of processing power to make it real. So with that heavy processing power comes infrastructure. And it's a new set of infrastructure. That's what I say is the third thing, right? So data, skills, infrastructure. The infrastructure that they have today can't support artificial intelligence. right? They have to think differently. And by the way, it might be all new technologies, right? Most people never even had GPUs in the data center. They don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. Would you say, I mean, what we just talked about, the data, the skills, the infrastructure are really the shifts that tech leaders are overlooking right now? Or are you seeing them integrating it into what they're doing with AI?
I would say most are struggling with that.
Yeah.
To what degree they struggle with it varies by organization. Some are more mature than others down that path. But I haven't seen like even at Dell, right? We're still transforming.
Yeah.
We don't have it all figured out. Like, here we are, Fortune 50 tech company. We don't have it all figured out.
Right.
We're moving
I think we're all
fast.
just figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't be afraid. The biggest thing that John Rose, who's the CTO of Dell, it's always about experimentation. How do you move fast? And in fact, probably not the acronym you'd think. Everybody goes SOL. It's the speed of light. How do we move at the speed of light?
Yeah.
Right? I've got to move at the speed of light. I need to be more agile. And then how do I quickly get one of these outcomes? It doesn't have to be, I think this is the other thing that I see that's challenged given those three areas. Everybody is waiting for perfect for AI. AI is not perfect.
It's not, and it's moving so fast that there's no time to get perfect.
No, exactly right.
It's all about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
So if you just had to narrow it down to one small change that you'd recommend to IT leaders to avoid bigger downstream headaches, what's the one?
It's a good question. I would say the number one area, and this is where everybody's uncomfortable, let's just call it out, skills. We have to reskill, right? All of our IT teams, back to that virtualization effort, that's where their comfort level is. And then this is what I've seen working with IT organizations globally. It's kind of interesting. No surprise here. The ones that are older in their career, that's been doing this a long time, and they've never dabbled or understand applications. So let me talk about that. They don't understand applications and data. They understand VMware and technologies like that from a virtualization layer. They're having a really hard time. And frankly, they may not want to be reskilled. Right? Like they're on the end of their career. They're like, I don't want to learn something new. I talk to them all the time. And it's like, no, I'm not ready. But yet the younger IT kids coming in, wow, they're hungry, right? They're like, I don't want to do this. And I want it to build scripts for me. I don't want to build scripts.
Right.
It can probably build scripts better than I ever could. So the skill gap right now is massive. And being able to engender, like making sure that you got talent in the right pools to support your organization. Because virtualization, while it might be considered legacy in a couple years, crazy to say that, might be considered legacy, those traditional applications, I still need somebody to own them. Just like many companies still have mainframes in productions. I remember the 70s, everybody going, and 80s, the death of the mainframe. There's no death of the mainframe. It's still out there for those legacy mission critical apps. So that, VMware might compress and I don't have as many virtualized servers because AI is going to take a lot of that workload off. And then I'm going to try to attract all of the right talent, right? New IT people. And I think everybody also over-rotated towards like data scientists and data science and even prompt engineering, which I'm glad to see that actually is kind of going away. The industry is moving away from it as a role because we're all going to be prompt engineers.
That's right. Yeah. Every employee in an organization needs to be skilled at that. So aside from experimentation and trial and error, what is your recommendation for reskilling and upskilling in the AI wave?
I think that the biggest thing is you have to get out there, right? There's a lot of different resources to help in that journey. We've got a couple of different software frameworks. One of them that we invested in with the Dell AI Factory with NVIDIA that I would encourage you. NVIDIA's obviously has a lot of the mic right now, right? And artificial intelligence and everybody's following what's happened in the stock market there. I think a lot of people don't realize they become as much a software company as hardware company. And they have an incredible platform called NVIDIA AI Enterprise, and it's end to end. They actually have two sections of the product, right? One really focused on IT to help them operationalize these large AI clusters, which again, new skill set. So, hey, I need AI operators, right? From an IT perspective. So they should become more familiar with those tools. And then I'm probably also going to have to skill either my traditional DevOps team, my BI teams, right? The ones that we're doing. In fact, I've seen this even of like all of our traditional data mart experts, because think about it, they're the closest to the data. They already understand the construct and the architecture. A lot of them realize their job goes away very quickly because they're like, why do I need a Power BI or any dashboard anymore when I can query and go to an LLM and ask it to give me? We have that right now. Like Michael's like, I'd like to know how many Pro Max 14s I sold in the last hour in the US. Boom, instantaneously at his fingertips. So I think it's retooling in both of those two pools. So one in the NVIDIA framework, and that's an easy one. And there's lots of things setting up on build.nvidia.com that people can just go experiment with today. They're up there. They're free. You can utilize them just to get started. And they built a lot of what I would almost call pre-packaged applications that might be 80% of the way there. Meaning it's a little bit above like a minimally viable product that people could get started with. And hey, let me try this and see if I can achieve the result I want. And then I would say the other one is the open source community, right, is a huge one for us. And, you know, we're embedded directly, the two biggest players there. One of them kind of crazy name for the people that have not been in AI space, Hugging Face. The easiest way to describe that one, if you all know GitHub and been doing things from a development perspective, this is like the GitHub for AI, for LLMs. And they actually have something called LM Studio. Same type of experience as what I just described with NVIDIA. It's not quite as proctored or curated, right? And it's not fully supported. It is open source. You can just download and use it. But it's a great place to get started and actually learn those skill sets. And, you know, what does it look like to take this application, add some data into it? What are the outputs? Oh, and then how do I put this thing into inference with something like anything LLM? So lots of tool sets available for free for people to start experimenting now.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I've got another question from our community. Jonathan Elkame, Senior Vice President of Technology and Innovation at the Doyle Collection, asks, how should tech leaders evaluate whether to build AI capabilities in-house or outsource to a partner? And if they outsource, what kind of value should they expect beyond just getting another tool?
No, those are good ones. And I'll actually refer it back to what John's opinion is. And I'm in complete agreement with what we're doing back to moving faster, right? Speed of light. We went through the same bell curve of like, should we build versus buy?
Right.
And when you think of that, artificial intelligence, in fact, I'm going to call this out in the next couple of years. I think we're going to just see AI embedded into a number of tools we have across everything. So for a lot of the common use cases that I described with the 6 horizontal, there's going to be lots of people competing in that space, right? They're going to have common off-the-shelf software powered by AI just to achieve those outcomes. It won't necessarily provide competitive first mover advantage of somebody that built it 2 or 3 years ago, but it will allow them to remain competitive quickly in the market, right? Or catch up to some of their constituents. So we are a big believer, like even Dell, a lot of those outcomes we're describing, those are bought, right? So we're buying ourselves. And that's where it is like, how do I quickly get to market? That's one way. And then I might start to take that buy motion and maybe build some things around what I purchased. And then the other thing I would describe, and you kind of said this a couple times or alluded to it earlier, this space is moving so fast.
So fast.
The guidance from John, and I am 100% aligned with this, is that the customers, as they're thinking about their subscriptions for anything they buy in AI, they need to think differently. This isn't, hey, I'm going to buy Broadcom and license it for 5 years and I'm good, right? I park it. This is, I'm going to probably subscribe to something for no more than 2 years. Because I don't know if something and a new calculus or a new technology is going to completely replace what I purchased.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, things are moving at the speed of light. I like that, SOL.
Yeah. And I would say the other one that I think is good in that spectrum too, there's a lot of really cool tools out there in that build versus buy spectrum that allow you to grow. So maybe you're buying something now, buying an outcome from a software ISV, but then they're actually starting to build these buy platforms, setting up something larger, right? With kind of the term that some of the viewers out there might know of low code, no code platforms.
Right. Yeah. We're using a lot of that right now. Yep.
Yeah. I don't need programmers. I'm going to put, these low code, no code tools in the power users that have the problem, because, by the way, this is also something that's, I'm glad is going away back to, I think data science is still going to be extremely important in some of the training efforts on some of these largest companies, but you don't need a data scientist in a company. I want to empower the business unit that has the business problem to actually build it themselves, right? That's where we get mainstream AI, because I'm going to give them the power of an easy to use tool to go solve that problem. Because right now, there's a lot of times too where you have this tension, kind of what you asked earlier too, between data science and the business. And I always feel like sometimes I'm having to play universal translator between them, right? Of like, what is that actually, what are you trying to achieve? And let me tell you, let's talk about the science and math that's going to go make that real. And then I would say the third piece around this is, it is about measuring ROI. You have to do it at every step of the way. And by the way, I find a lot of mistakes. We did some of this too. We were chasing over 1,000 use cases. If I look back about 3 years ago at Dell, and we had to prioritize. And I said this earlier of like, how do you go and build that fit roadmap? If I look at the business problem, right? Forget the use case. I look at the business problem. Can I do something faster, better, cheaper, right, than what I'm doing today? If I can't answer those questions, it's probably not a fit. Everything's not going to be powered by AI.
That's great advice. Okay, we've got another question. Actually, this is a question that comes up a lot. So Sherry Spell from Williams Brothers Trucking shared that they're eager to embrace AI, but struggling to find solutions that connect with their proprietary systems. This is something that we hear from our tech community all the time. So what's your guidance for tech leaders in similar positions? How can they evaluate AI options for integration when they're working with specialized software, private cloud setups, or just proprietary systems in general?
Yeah, and I hate to go back to this, but I'm going to go back to, it's all about the data, because here's what else is interesting. I said this in the virtualization layer, but maybe some people might have to think about this for a minute if they hadn't yet. In the OSI layer, does the application layer go away? It absolutely could, because it's going to be AI interacting with your data and you're asking it to do something with it. Back to my example of the BI team. No, I may not need a data mart anymore.
Right.
So these systems go away. So it's all about the interaction with your data, not necessarily the system. So you have to think differently, right? I'm not going to interact with the application. I'm going to interact with the data stored in that. And then the data for that application is probably going to live on some unstructured platform or in some type of structured database. How do I extract that database and train the model to understand what that data is? And by the way, a lot of these models come out of the box where especially now as we're moving towards the next wave, which is agentic AI. And I'd kind of layer that one in here of imagine your business applications and a process that you're doing today, whether it's your customer or an internal employee, and I could completely automate that process. So now I have an agent, right? This is the idea of building agents that understands your data, understands what the outcome, and just goes and does it on its own. I had a fascinating conversation, not in the trucking industry, but there's some things in logistics that could play here. But think about it in retail of like, what's the future of retail? Think about what this one thing could happen, and we're not this far away, to retailers, whether they're online or in the store. If all of us, right, as shoppers, could just as an agent to go, here's the product I'm looking for, find me the lowest price available, and I need it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't even have to go to any website anymore. It's all done. It's all done via APIs. We're probably less than 12 months away from services like that coming out.
Wow. Amazing.
What impact did that have to that industry? And the same thing in logistics. Think about this in B2B. Because the same thing's going to happen in B2B, not just B2C.
Yeah.
So I think understanding that the data is the core of this, right? Not your applications. And I will say that there are a lot of applications, right? Depending on how the application is built, that have some native APIs that make it even easier for some of these low code, no code platforms to tie into, right? Whether they're, I mean, here's what's interesting too. Think about this one. Software engineering, tying in software engineering with AI and your application, you can and have a coding agent. We have a coding agent that's agentic in nature today. It could build the code for you.
Yeah.
So you leverage that. You don't even have programmers. It could leverage that API.
We have
to
a
give
whole
you
AI dev team now. Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
So exciting times. So yes, I'm getting the moral of this episode is get your data right.
Yes.
And mindset shifts, right? Like it sounds like there are quite a few mindset shifts that have to happen. So what mindset shifts do tech leaders need to lead successfully in this next wave of AI driven change?
There's a lot that I think could kind of decompact there. And I hate to go back to repetitive themes, but
they're important, so they're worth repeating.
Because it is all about your data, right? And I would say back to what I just said about applications and frameworks, that layer over time, we really have to start thinking that SaaS and traditional applications and VMware, right, or any virtualization effort are now really legacy. Everything else, in fact, if you look at Gartner IDC, the predictions are that within the next 2 years, that over 60% of infrastructure purchase will be for AI.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Everything else is legacy.
Yeah, that's true. It's
true. Not even relevant.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. You have to have a mind step change quickly of like, hey, look, those applications are great. I have to rethink everything of how my business operates. Because if I don't, this is the big fear, there's going to be more transformational change in the marketplace in every industry and vertical of those that are powered by AI and those that are not.
Yeah.
And those that are not, it's going to be faster than any change in business than what we've all seen through, .com, through the app era, ever. Like it's just, go all the way back to the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
This is what Michael keeps calling out, right? It's bigger than the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, and I don't think most of us can even really conceive of what it looks like 1 year out, 2 years out, 5 years out.
And you can't wait for perfect. I'm going to go back to that one.
Yeah, it'll never be perfect.
And we're moving to this realm of, really on-premise high-performance architecture too. So we've seen this big shift of everything coming back into the data center. Right? Data center build-outs happening, large modular data center platforms, colo. It's been a fight for colo space. Because people, in some cases, shut down their data center and they're like, I can't afford to run this big thing in the public cloud. I need to find a place to do it. Okay. All the colo providers are out there to do it. And primarily it's because it is interacting with the company's data. You've got to have the right security, governance, control, and performance characteristics around generative AI.
Right. So you're seeing a move back into the data center. From the cloud.
Huge. In fact, the most recent study that we just did said that 69%, think about that stat already, 69% is on-prem.
Yeah. Wow.
And we don't even talk about that the 30%, is also just me selling sometimes to my competitors in the public cloud, right? Because they got to buy those GPUs from somebody.
Right. That's right. Is there like a belief or a habit of sort of the old way that you have seen in the field that's been tough for people to let go of, but like really necessary?
Again, I hate to call back common themes. I think it's the fact that it's applications. It's business applications, right? And I have to think differently of how my users are going to interact with my data to achieve an outcome, and understanding what that business process is and what are the outcomes that forget the application. That's where a lot of IT was focused, is how do I create the right SLA for that application. But I never understood as IT what that application was or what benefit or how important it was, other than the business unit going, I need that at 7x24 with 5 nines. They really didn't know what it did. They weren't ERP experts, right? It was the application developers and the DevOps team that have been out there. So this mind shift that we've all got to get together in one big pool to work as a team to build these outcomes is true, more true now than ever.
Yeah.
And being able to get some IT, and I'll say it's very few, some IT organizations are good at it, but others are not, right? Of having the right line of business stakeholders and being able to understand what the problems are. Now is the time that has to happen.
Yeah, I see that. What's one thing you wish every tech leader understood about AI right now? And what gives you hope about the future we're building? Like, what gives you the most optimism about where tech leadership is heading?
I'd say number one, it's not a technical problem to solve. I'm going to go back to ROI, right? It's got to quickly achieve a tangible ROI for the business, so there's no point in pursuing it. And the models are just a way to get to the destination. Everybody's, talking about models. Even some of all my friends in IT always want to talk about the models that are even interested in it, right? A lot are not, but the ones that are starting to get it, it's the first area of interest where they're like, oh, what are these different models? And there's lots of them, but not understanding where, what model selection would look like, why they would select those models, how to get it into inference. There's a lot of decision points along the way. And the fact that it's just a tool. Right? The model's just a tool to achieve the outcome. Now, I will say back to the second part of your question about the future and the hope. I think the biggest thing, and you probably have seen this, and it's one reason I've remained here at Dell, Michael is very much, a technical optimist. And it's always about how do we drive human, progress forward.
Yeah.
And I do think about it in these areas of biggest one, because I've been pursuing this forever in healthcare, like with HPC. This is now just, quadrupled what we could do in the days of just traditional HPC environments. In fact, AI is fueling all of those traditional HPC applications. Weather simulations and modeling have gone in a completely different direction. Especially, I live near Tampa, and the challenges we had last year with the hurricanes.
Oh yeah,
it was
I'm in Orlando, so I know.
The Euro AI model was spot on. Like, it was amazing to see how good it really was, right? And get to see it real time. And hopefully, it saves some lives because we're able to predict better and more accurate. I also think about like educational access and quality could really go through the roof. We're very excited about what this could do in the education space worldwide, right? Even outside of the United States. You've probably seen it making some big investments in pods in Africa, for example, to help educate them. And then I'm going to go back to public safety and disaster response, because they're tightly tied to what I said of meteorology and being able to achieve those outcomes.
Yeah. Using
Cameras, because cameras, right, everybody talks about IoT, but, what's the most pervasive sensor that's in the world? It's cameras. And what could I do to train a model? This is actually more traditional AI, but it's very relevant. It's one of those 6 horizontal use cases, right, of like computer vision to train a model to do something. So if somebody's, walking down the street with an AR-15, how do I make sure that that's taken care of quickly?
Right. Yeah.
So public safety and disaster response, I think, are key. And to me, like, more pragmatically, those are all the great things we'll be doing. But I also look at it just personally of getting rid of boring work tasks.
Yes, 100%. Just the mundane stuff. Yeah.
Like I said, we rolled out sales chat, and that was the first thing, like, oh my God, I don't have to spend all the time taking all this, these files and organize them in different folders and trying to place them. I don't have to worry about any of it anymore.
Yeah, and freeing up your human resources for creativity.
More strategic pursuits, right, to accelerate business outcome.
Yeah. And we're scaling with AI. And one of the things I'm so excited about that we have not been able to do in the past, but I see the potential, and we will be able to do this with AI, is move to a 3 or 4 day work week. So fewer hours for employees to work, but still the same level of profitability. So same or better pay. And they get to be more creative. So I'm really excited about the potential of those types of things.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah. Well, this has been incredible, Alan. It's just such useful and actionable information, and definitely picked up on the moral of the story here with the data. And like I said, we're in the throes of that now too, as I know a lot of our IT customers are. So before I let you go, we're going to start a new tradition here on the podcast. And since this is our first episode, you get the honor of going first. And this is what we're going to call the rapid fire round, and just a quick series of reflection questions we're going to ask every guest moving forward. So ready?
Yeah, great.
So what's one fire you're still putting out?
Data quality and availability.
I'm not surprised to hear that. Us too. What's one future you're still building toward?
The singularity. Joking aside, maybe some people, the science fiction, put that aside. That should be interesting once we get there. But seriously, more agentic and physical AI, right? The next phase of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really exciting. We'll have to have you back to talk about that when we're closer. But something tells me we're not as far as it seems. Yeah.
Less than 2 years.
Yeah, it's moving so fast. What's something tech leaders need to build? One thing they need to build now and one thing they need to let go of.
I would say the thing they need to build now is modern skill sets. And I'm going to call it across a number of things because, again, everybody's still building towards VMs, right, or virtualization machines. Everything's moving towards container-based architectures with artificial intelligence. They have to get their data architecture in place, right, to support these modern workloads. They have to think about the infrastructure that underpins this because they're probably going to run it on-prem for all the reasons we described earlier. And then what are the AI tool sets they're going to provide to their power users, right? Build versus buy, to enable them to achieve those outcomes quickly. And then the one thing to let go of, I said it a million times, let go of virtualization. It's still important, right? But it's legacy. It's not the driver of the business anymore.
Right. Yeah, that's so great to hear. And, when our team hears that, I'll make sure that they have some talking points to address that because, we still hear it. We will definitely guide them down the path. And last question, if you could offer just one sentence of advice to a tech leader stuck between firefighting and forward motion, what would it be?
I think that's everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that fits everybody.
Not even just IT leaders. It's all of us.
I fight this every day, right? It's the same thing. And this is actually, I'll call out two things that I believe are extremely important that are sometimes hard to do. The first one is ruthlessly prioritize. And part of that prioritization, back to what we were talking about with all these incredible AI tools that are ready outside of the box, start to leverage them yourselves, right? In IT, leverage them, ask them to go write a script, do something different, right? Like the step change. So, because that could be an area of prioritization and challenge your teams, right? As a leader, you have to delegate. You have to take everything out and delegate as much as you possibly can to the right team members, right, with the right skill set. So ruthlessly prioritize. The second one I would call out is really about carving out transformation time. It's what I call it. So back to this, if you're going to innovate, you're trying to move at the speed of light, you're always going to be putting out fires. It's just the nature of the beast, right? But can you carve out 20 to 30% of your time every week focusing on strategic work? So think about those things we talked about, those new modern skill sets of what am I doing to plan, design, architect, upskill my teams, and build a better data architecture. Everything we've talked about today, doesn't matter which phase you're at, right, of your AI journey, you've got to carve that time out, dedicated to it.
Put it in your calendar because it is so easy to fill your calendar with fighting fires if you don't just make an appointment with yourself.
You never make progress.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Alan, thank you for being here, for being our first ever guest, and for being so generous with your time and your insight. This has been fun, and I've learned a lot.
Yeah, no, it was fantastic. Appreciate everybody joining us today.
So if someone wants to connect with you directly, what's the best way to reach you?
Do not hesitate. Please feel free to just drop me a quick note. It's Allen, ALLEN, .Clingerman, CLINGERMAN @Dell.com.
Perfect. And if you're listening and feeling the pressure to adopt AI, but also the pressure to get it right, you're not alone. That's exactly why this podcast exists, to help tech leaders lead through it. And if you're ready to explore solutions that came up in today's conversation, head to technologymatch.com. You can click sign in at the top right to access your dashboard, or if you're not already a member, it takes seconds to sign up. So sign up if you're new here. And then to connect with Dell and Alan's team, just type in Dell AI Factory in the search bar, and that'll lead you right to the solution landing page for Dell, and everything you need to evaluate, fit, and take the next steps will be right there for you. Well, thank you so much, Alan. Really appreciate the insight, and it's been great to kick this new series off with purpose and clarity, and no better, hotter topic than what we covered today.